Hello, I'm Dan Alexander. Thanks for joining me for another of my webcast episodes. Appreciate it. I'd like to talk to you this evening about something that I'm far from an expert about, but nonetheless, I find it quite interesting. Imagine for a second that in some nondescript burg out in the middle of nowhere, C.F. Martin and Orville Gibson and the Larson brothers and John D. Angelico all had their shops on one block. Well, obviously, C.F. Martin's shop would have been in 1830 something, and Orville Gibson's would have been in 1895, and the Larsons would have been in 1900, and so on. Of course, that situation didn't exist. But when it comes to the violin, oddly enough, that situation sort of did exist. Here, the first violin was made by Andrea Amati, who was born in about 1505. He lived to about 1580. His sons, uh, Antonio and Hieronymus Amati, were also violin builders, as was his grandson, Niccolo Amati. Niccolo Amati had numerous apprentices, including Joseph Guarneri and Antonio Stradivari. There were numerous other makers in Cremona. And the crazy thing is that Antonio and Hieronymus Amati, Joseph Guarneri, who is the most famous of the Guarneri dynasty, known as Del Gesu, Carlos Bergonzi, and Antonio Stradivari all had their shops on the same block, not at the same time, but all on the same block. And within a few blocks of that same place, Niccolo Amati and Storioni and Cerruti and Ruggieri all had their shops, all in Cremona. It's very, very strange. But in any case, that's historically the reality of it. And as you probably know, of course, those people built all of the most famous masterpiece Italian violins. Um, and then on top of that, there was the story of a man named Luigi Teresio. And Teresio lived 100 years after all of these guys had died. And the violins and other instruments that they had built were no longer of interest to people. Most of them were in very bad condition and were in somebody's closet or at the church or in a monastery or wherever. Teresio was responsible for digging up, for unearthing 1,000 Cremonese masterpiece instruments and bringing them to Paris and London and selling them. And the vast preponderance of those instruments that are known to exist in the world were originally unearthed by Luigi Teresio. Incredible. without his interest in those old violins and his lifetime spent digging them out, it would have been lost forever, probably. So there you have it. But that's crazy stuff. And of course, you know, those instruments are worth gazillions and bazillions of dollars. And there you have it. So wear a mask, stay safe, don't listen to the anti-science people. It's a dangerous world out there. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great evening.